and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. And welcome all to the second of 5 Focus Niagara-on-the-Lake sponsored meet and greet sessions. I'm Colin Patey, and I will be the moderator for the evening. We have a special welcome, however, to the Councilor candidates, Mr. Burroughs, Gary, Maria. You see, we will have this problem with the mic, and excuse me if I have to take it with me. If you turn anywhere from not on? Is it never done up?
It's on.
It's on.
No. Let me go check.
You can't turn this
Can't
one
turn
on.
it off.
Oh, that's why.
This
We turned it
No.
Oh, there you go. Now, yeah.
5 leads to remember.
Don't turn it off.
Gary Burroughs, Maria Mavridis, Richard Mell, and Nick Ruller. I first need brave citizens prepared to serve your community. I first need your indulgence to cover 5 important housekeeping matters. The first is in case of an unfortunate need to evacuate the room, please know that the exit is stage right. Second, we will need to be out of the room by 9. Third, the Legion has provided a very favorable rental rate, and we encourage you to donate a loonie, a toonie, or what you have in your pocket to the Legion in recognition of their civic contribution. A donation jar is by the hall entrance. And in fact, at the mayor's meeting, we raised $347. Fourth, after adjournment, do take this opportunity to meet the candidates. They have literature in the back, and they plan to hang around, meet them here or downstairs. Fifth, as we cannot live stream from the Legion, the sessions are recorded to be uploaded to YouTube. The link to YouTube will be posted on Focus Niagara-on-the-Lake and other Facebook pages tomorrow afternoon. If you know of anyone who couldn't make this evening's session, please let them know that they can watch the session on YouTube tomorrow. And 6th and final, feedback is appreciated. Send your comments to Niagara Election 2022@cogeco.ca. If you didn't get that, we have cards with that address down by the donation jar. Now, on to what you came to hear and see. Let me first say, some newspaper articles have referred to the meet and greets as debates. Let me make it clear. The meet and greets are not, and I say not, debates. There will be no direct interaction between the candidates. All presentations and answers to questions are to be taken at face value and unchallenged by the other candidates. There will be no rebuttals. It will be up to you, the audience, to analyze the differences, if any, in deciding who to vote for. If you were at any of the 2018 meet and greet sessions, you will notice some changes to our format this time. We want to make you aware of that, in case you're expecting the same thing. First, all candidates for each position have been interviewed. We could not do this in 2018 due to the sheer number of councillor candidates. There are 24. And, of course, cost consideration. This time, with 20 candidates running for the 3 categories, we could accommodate everyone. Second, questions submitted by residents will again be presented. These questions form 3 of 4 to be asked. In our community, there are many high-profile issues that you're well aware of, such as the Tourist Municipal Accommodation Tax, known as MAT, development and developer lawsuits, tax increases, migration to award system, and of course, tourism and its associated impacts on traffic, parking, overcrowding, and the operational cost to residents for maintaining the tourism infrastructure. We specifically invited the media to submit their own questions, and the lake report and the advance submitted questions, and we will present 1 media question per session. To reiterate, 3 from the community at large and 1 from the media. 4 questions for the candidates tonight. In order to ensure that all candidates have an equal opportunity to answer every question posed, questions we receive directed to an individual candidate, and you may have sent some in to us, will not be asked unless restructured, obviously with permission of the questioner, to make it apply to all candidates. And questions with lengthy preambles, let me tell you, we have those, modified for the sake of brevity. As in 2018, no question will be repeated between the sessions, the upcoming ones in this session. This will ensure that other candidates will not have to preview to questions and answers, and therefore have an unfair advantage. Now, for new residents of Niagara-on-the-Lake, of which we understand there's about 1,600, and for those voting for the first time, here are a few points of clarity. There are 8 councillors elected at large. The 8 candidates with most votes are elected, with the councillor having the most votes acting as Deputy Lord Mayor. So you may cast up to 8 votes for councillors, and it takes 5 total votes to pass legislation or bylaws. Now, the meet and greet process is meant to be very simple and aimed at giving candidates up to 25 minutes of airtime. We thought 22 minutes in the hour, but CBC had rights on that, I believe, and we wanted to be more serious in order to get their message across. This is more time than at all candidates' meetings or debates, and more time to engage with voters than going door to door. The process is very successful in 2018, so we brought it back. Now, each candidate will have 10 minutes to introduce themselves and present their platform. They will come to the podium for that. Each candidate will be allocated 3 minutes to answer in turn the 4 questions selected for this evening on the video. All activities will be timed and a reminder issued when there is a 1 minute remaining. I'm speaking. Bob Bader is our timekeeper for this evening. He's a serious man. Next, what I have here is to draw for the order of the candidates to go. Who gets drawn first will be first to the podium, then the other 3. And then when the time comes for the question, the candidate who is second will then be first to receive the question, and it will repeat itself. They made fun of me earlier tonight that I had put the names in my pocket, and I asked somebody to come up and, forgive me, it was not intentional, come up and take the names out of the hat. Another lady, would you come up and take a name out of this hat, please? Joseph, just one. You can open it. Nick will be first, okay? Oh, we need that.
Mavridis.
Richard, I have nothing.
Of course, but we got to draw your name anyway.
To make sure we see. You have to first.
Oh. Gary Burroughs.
Surprise, surprise. Okay. Almost in reverse order here, interesting. So, what we will do now is in that order, we will have each of the candidates come up and you will have a 10-minute time to introduce yourself. And with a warning of 1 minute, you don't have to be that long, but your choice.
Thank you. Just make sure this is. Maybe I'll take it out.
I had to.
Good evening. I'd like to start by thanking Focus Niagara-on-the-Lake for organizing this event and the Royal Canadian Legion for hosting us. My name is Ruller, and I'm excited to be afforded the opportunity to continue to serve the community that I've lived in for most of my life and the place my family considers home. As a new candidate, I want to take a moment to share a little about myself and what my position is as we head into this election. The youngest of 4 children, I was raised in Virgil, attending both Virgil Public School and Niagara District Secondary School. Toward the end of my high school years, I became a volunteer firefighter in Old Town, just up the road here on King Street at the time, and was hired shortly thereafter by Toronto Fire Services as a career firefighter. Not long after being hired by Toronto Fire, I relocated to Toronto, where I met my wife, Lita. Together, we settled in the west end of Toronto, where we started what would be a rapidly growing family. In 2013, with 4 children under the age of 4, we returned to Niagara-on-the-Lake, settling in Garrison Village. Now, all 4 children are proud Coyotes, attending Crossroads Public School in Virgil. I've spent my entire working career in the public service. In 2017, I left Toronto Fire Services and accepted the Deputy Fire Chief position with the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake, before being promoted to Fire Chief in 2019. While Fire Chief, I was also performing the role of Deputy Regional Fire Coordinator for the region, supporting the region and local municipalities during major emergencies by ensuring resources are available and supported through the Regional Emergency Operations Center. I also sat on the executive board of the Niagara Regional Fire Chiefs Association. In early 2022, I resigned as Fire Chief after accepting a management opportunity as a platoon chief with a large GTA fire service. This move placed me back onto a shift work schedule, providing oversight to a single platoon of approximately 110 career firefighters. Additionally, this move allowed me to remain as a volunteer firefighter with Niagara-on-the-Lake concurrently. This recent career change enables me to dedicate more personal time to endeavors such as municipal council. A lifelong learner, I have completed a Master of Arts in Leadership through the University of Guelph, a graduate certificate from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill in Community Preparedness and Disaster Management, and I'm a graduate of Ryerson University's Politics and Public Administration program. Recently, I completed a certificate program in Diversity and Inclusion through Cornell University. My experience leading complex organizations and my strong understanding of municipal operations, my track record of success, and my long-standing roots in our community will be vital to our success. Furthermore, I have demonstrated throughout my life strong character and moral conviction. I'm committed to building high-performing teams and have proven myself as a fierce advocate of continuous improvement through citizen-centered service delivery. Lastly, throughout my time as part of senior management team for the town, I demonstrated that I'm community-minded, outcome-focused, strategic, analytical, and a consensus builder. Strong municipal leadership is a byproduct of elected officials with attributes, characteristics, values, and qualities that will contribute to the short-term and long-term well-being of their community. Local government touches the lives of citizens every day. The 2018 to 2022 term of council has seen significant investment in various comprehensive studies to set long-term strategic direction for the town. Consequently, the incoming council must prepare to be decisive and expeditious to ensure that these studies are capitalized on. The finalization of the Transportation Master Plan, the official plan and required zoning bylaw updates, and the tourism strategy must be prioritized to ensure that the shift to implementation is not unnecessarily delayed. We must go beyond words. This election is a call to action. It is an opportunity to ensure that Niagara-on-the-Lake continues to be an amazing place to grow up, to raise a family, to work in, to visit, to invest in, and to retire in. To me, this means being more strategic, anticipatory, proactive, and outcome-focused. Specifically, finalizing and actioning the official plan, completion of a tourism strategy, and the revision and finalization of the transportation master plan. It means improving relationships between staff and council to ensure that the organizational culture is created by design and not by default. We need to empower the CAO to build a high-performing team through investment in human capital, including retaining high performers. We need a renewed focus on organizational culture and the development of organizational values that encompass ownership and collaboration. Finally, we must ensure there is better representation of the distinct community's needs and effective and timely communication with community stakeholders. The only way to move forward is to make this municipal government as accessible and transparent as possible, so that democracy, community, and collaboration drives everything that we do together. While the town faces many challenges heading into the next term of council, we must go beyond words and political gestures and do the hard work that results in effective local government. Again, my name is Nick Ruller, and on October 24th, I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Maria?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'd like to thank Joe and his team for pulling this together. My daughter Hope is in the audience this evening. I was her age when my parents moved us to Niagara-on-the-Lake. They purchased a bakery on Queen Street, and we moved from Hamilton. What drew my mom to Niagara-on-the-Lake was the community feel. She worked hard at advocating for the town, was on parent council at Niagara District, and raised us to give back to the community we live in. For the last 22 years since she passed, that's what I have done. I have sat on many local boards and committees that have taught me importance of open conversation, policies and procedures, and governance. As an advocate for youth, I was an advisor on the Lord Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, and presently am proud and excited to be part of the team for the Notl Youth Campus in Virgil. I invite you all, October 19th, to the open house at Cornerstone. In 2019, I worked with council and staff to introduce the Pathstone Mental Health Walk-in Clinic at Red Roof Retreat. With input and feedback from the youth in our town and the financial support from the town and local businesses, we were able to provide a safe, drop-in environment for the youth of our town. In 2014, I proudly led the Niagara Jazz Festival in the inaugural year for sponsorship and event coordinating, ensuring to keep local live music in Niagara. I have stood in front of council many times over the years to present a sound voice on issues relating to business, tourism, and residents. And in 2021, I was presented with the GMCC Women in Business Community Leadership Award. Canvassing has confirmed what I've known all along. This town is made up of great businesses and amazing residents. As both a local business owner and resident, the preservation of this community is my top priority. Collaborating together to complete a tourism strategy that will coincide with the master transportation plan and to implement solutions for traffic, parking, and infrastructure are all important to me. Ensuring responsible development for the future in this town as our young families grow, as we approach retirement, and for our friends and neighbors in this community who require long-term care are a priority. My experience from my volunteer roles is what makes me a team player. My experience from a family business is what makes me a leader. And your vote on October 24th is what will make me your voice. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Firstly, I'd like to again thank the organisers of the meet and greet this evening for putting their time and hard work into organising this event. It's an amazing opportunity to meet the candidates that you have for this upcoming election. So my name is Richard Mell, and I'm here this evening to ask for your support and your vote on October 24th as I strive to become one of your next 8 town councillors to represent the residents and the small businesses of our beautiful town of Notl. I have to say, first of all, that sitting here on stage with Gary Burroughs is an honour. Somebody that's dedicated so much of their time to our community, Lord Mayor, Regional Councillor, and our current Town Council. I've got so much respect for your time commitment that you've given, and if I'm lucky enough to get a seat on Town Council, I'd love to learn from your experience and your knowledge. Sometimes though, when it's 10 o'clock at night on a Monday and I'm sat watching Council and you raise your hand one more time to ask one more question, I have to say I yell at the screen at you to sit down. But in all seriousness, no, thank you so much for everything you've done for the community. I'm also proud to be sat next to Nick and Maria this evening, 2 more residents that are willing to put themselves out there to represent you all on Town Council. I've got to know them all a lot better over the last few weeks at our meet and greets and our debates, and their passion and dedication, it inspires me even more. A short background of my journey here to living in Niagara. I was born in Yorkshire, England, completing my schooling, culminating in a degree in criminology and psychology at the University of Hull. My father moved to Niagara-on-the-Lake in 2000 with his partner Diane, and they had a bed and breakfast built here in Old Town. In 2007, they started a little business called Great Escape Wine Tours, and shortly after that, in 2010, I came over to visit on what was only intended to be a 2-week vacation. Having been to Niagara-on-the-Lake a few times before, this time it was a little bit different. I fell in love with the town, even though it was the dead of winter and I was in charge of shoveling all the snow from the driveway. I didn't want to go back to the UK, so I decided to stay. I applied for a work permit, then permanent residency, followed by my citizenship, and I'm proud to say that I've been a Canadian citizen since 2018. Back in 2010, we at Great Escape, we had 1 minivan, we had 30 bikes, and we ran the business from home. 12 years of hard work later, we've now got 5 vehicles that we own, we have 150 bikes, and I employ 45 tour guides. I'm so proud to be able to showcase the very best of what Niagara has to offer, Niagara's wines, gourmet cuisine, and nothing brings me more joy than to see our guests go home with cases and cases of Niagara wine back to their family and friends, and really getting to see what everybody enjoys about visiting Niagara-on-the-Lake. Sometimes I do think we forget how lucky we are to live in such a beautiful part of the world. As well as co-owning Great Escape Wine Tours, I want to expand my horizons. So in 2018, I gained my real estate license, followed by in 2020, my real estate broker's license. And now I work with an awesome group of people at Sotheby's International Realty on Bridge Street. I know from experience just what hard work, maximum effort, and ultimate dedication can achieve, and I'm not afraid of any challenge. Except maybe having to stand in front of so many people this evening and speak. It's the second most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done. The first one being the debate last week on stage at the Ruller Theatre. Currently I live on York Road in St David with my partner Carl and our Newfoundland dog Junior. And I'm just going to go through 3. Just water. So moving on to my platform. Since the beginning of my campaign, I've been asked this by many residents, small business owners, and even visitors that come and join us at Great Escape. What means most to me. The more I chat to people, the more I'm learning what that really means and what means most to our community. Going into this, I had no complete list of everything that I want to do as town councillor. For me, it's about being the best representative for the community that I can be. It's about amplifying your voices, listening to your concerns, and ensuring that they're heard and addressed in the most efficient and effective way possible. My ultimate goal is to seek reasonable balance among the most divisive issues that our municipality faces. Breaking something down as simply A versus B, or pro this or anti that, automatically results in division. For the most part, I think nothing can be truly black and white, especially in such a unique town as ours. We need to strive to stop focusing on demonizing the issues and work strategically on solutions. My platform is to add a rational voice guided by common sense and consistency, whilst applying nuance where required to represent as many people as possible in the most positive way that I can. Now I'd like to move on and talk about 3 of the main areas that I see significant scope for improvement within our town. First of all, planning and development. We all know that this is one of the singular hot topics within our town, and with every conversation that I've been having with people as I go around campaigning. I see one of the biggest issues as being deficiencies within the planning department, both in terms of staffing and procedure. I think one of the best ways that we could address these core issues would be to expand the budget that's allocated to the planning department by redirecting funds from some other areas after a full strategic review. Historically, and from my understanding, we've had struggles in staff retention and the ability to attract top talent to these roles. This is one, if not the most important department within our municipality, and we need to ensure that it has the foundation and consistency by establishing a long-term strategic team that has the number of staff available, not only to handle the volume of applications, but also the complexities within them. I think this would be a much better approach rather than the apparent firefighting of singular issues and applications. We all know that the official plan has had its setbacks over many years, and when the region has its past, we need to make every effort to ensure that the municipal OP is expedited and aligned with the requirements necessary to push it past the finish line. Then we need to efficiently and effectively bring the draft zoning bylaw forwards for final review and ensure that it's securely in line with our growth vision for Niagara-on-the-Lake. Secondly, onto our tourism strategy, or simply lack of one. Over the past 12 years of living in Niagara-on-the-Lake and being involved in the tourism industry, I've seen firsthand the shift of feelings of our residents being proud to showcase our town to what the current feelings are of what appear to be the perception that the tourism industry places such a heavy burden on our core infrastructure. These feelings are completely understandable and in some cases, if not most cases, completely warranted. There's been a lot of talk and promises of a comprehensive tourism strategy, and the fact that we do not currently have one is the main reason that we're in this position in the first place. Similar to development issues, we need to begin with our ultimate vision for where we want to see our community be in the next 2, 5 or 10 years, and then we can work backwards so that we can reach these objectives. The municipal accommodation tax, despite being implemented at a horrible time due to COVID-19, was a small positive first step to bridge that gap and those feelings of an overburden from the industry. There are significant improvements that could be made and also a possible expansion of this concept. My biggest disappointment with the municipal accommodation tax is that how we are only now starting to think about how to budget and allocate its funds that are already being collected. With so many delays in the tax's implementation, I feel there was ample time to have this, or at least some of the initial plans put in place, which would again ease some of our residents' concerns. The basis of our tourism strategy needs to start with a resident-first focus. We need to ensure that representatives from our community are involved from its initial development and keep all lines of communication open throughout its creation. Thirdly and finally, I'd like to talk about licensing and permitting. I'm sure most of us, when it comes to our interactions with the town, will be to pay our municipal taxes or when we're applying for a license or a permit. The policies and procedures surrounding these are fundamental to our community's function and growth. As both a resident and a small business owner, I've had many applications make their way through the process at Town Hall and have first-hand experience on how tedious and drawn-out the process can be. I know our current CAO and staff has made strides in addressing some of these shortfalls, but this is one of the areas that I believe I can truly contribute effectively, creating efficiencies and advocating for eliminating unnecessary red tape in the appropriate areas. I would even go so far as to suggest that we can look to introduce something many other municipalities have, for simple and straightforward applications by introducing fast-track nights, an evening dedicated specifically to deal with these simple and straightforward applications and decisions. So 10 minutes is a really short time to get to know all about me and my vision for the next term of council. I certainly welcome the opportunity to chat with all of you at another time, maybe in a smaller group setting would be preferred. Once again, my name is Richard Mell. You can visit my website at richardmell.com to learn a little bit more about me. You can get my contact details. I hope this helps you learn about me, and I would appreciate your vote on October 24th.
Thank you, Richard and Gary.
Thanks very much. Good evening. My My name is Gary Burroughs, and for more than 50 years, I have lived, worked, and raised my family in Niagara-on-the-Lake. During that time, I owned and operated the Oban Inn, where we worked to serve many locals and their families. After I left the inn, I was drawn into politics to serve as Niagara-on-the-Lake's Lord Mayor from 2000 to 2010, Regional Councilor from 2010 to 2018, including 4 years as Regional Chair, and I've been honored to serve as a Town Councilor for the last 4 years. Throughout these past 22 years of service to the town, I have developed a deep understanding of its strengths and its challenges. Great honor for me to receive the Niagara-on-the-Lake Citizen of the Year in 2010 and the Living Landmark Award by the Niagara Foundation in 2015. In my view, the following items must be addressed immediately: the completion of the official plan, updating our zoning bylaw, including contextual zoning, which I refer to as streetscape, the rework of the transportation master plan to address parking, traffic, and needs of residents, considering the community first, not just the traffic flow. Devoting a tourism strategy with business and residents' input so that we can move forward with a clear understanding of the issues surrounding the new municipal accommodation tax so that we can focus on its implementation. For development, growth must be better managed so developers are clear on what the town expects and requires. Significant changes to proposed plans cannot continue to be adjusted once plans have been approved. The town must address development issues at Randwood, Parliament Oak School, as well as the old hospital. We cannot continue to deal with development as one-offs. We must have a coordinated plan with the town, the region, and the province, all working together to promote the best interests of Niagara-on-the-Lake. With that said, we must unite as a whole community to get what we want from the region and the province. We need, under business and tourism, we need to continue to work to support tourism by ensuring our visitors stay at our lodgings, eat at our restaurants, enjoy our wineries, and visit our historic sites, including the Shaw Festival Theater, the Fort George. The town's natural beauty and historic trails are also bringing new visitors to Niagara. Along with this growth and success, we must ensure we are managing the impact on tourism on our residents. This was true when I ran for council in 1989, and it's still true today. Our business community thrives as it changes throughout the town. Even 10 years ago, the majority of our hospitality and retail industry was in the old town. Today, it is exciting to see businesses changing and succeeding throughout the entire community. Virgil has a thriving and growing restaurant and retail business sector. Glendale has the outlet mall, new hotels, and more planned. The village is about to build a hotel with more retail space. Businesses cannot thrive if people can't get here. We must work to ensure that we have the infrastructure, parking facilities, and alternate means of transportation to get tourists and staff to our businesses. Under agribusiness, our wineries and agribusinesses are leading the country in exciting new ventures, and agritourism has never been more of an attraction. These wineries and vineyards, along with world-class tender fruit and vegetable farms, as well as nurseries, must continue to be supported as they thrive in our rural areas. We must support them on issues such as viability, threats such as Phragmites, the protection of water sources, and the enforcement of landfill regulations. I am now and have always been committed to honesty, good governance, and transparency Throughout the years, we have managed to navigate our town through the pressures of progress and the immense change. Today, however, these threats have never been greater. This next term of town councilor will have both strengths and weaknesses. My job as a councilor will be to work with the Lord Mayor and the rest of council to mold our group into a team with a shared vision for our community, to move forward our agreed key priorities, still respecting that there may be strong differences of opinion on specific issues. We in Niagara-on-the-Lake are lucky enough to live in an unusual kind of community. It's agricultural, but it's urban. It's small town, but it's world famous. It's where Upper Canada began with history and heritage, but it's famous for our Shaw Festival Theatre and still an active place to live. Change is inevitable and needed, but it's how we manage the change that matters. That is my commitment to residents. Hard work and inclusive, balanced decision-making to ensure that concerned voices are both heard and considered in a timely manner. Contrary to what some of you may believe, I am not against the MAT tax. My problem is it has been approved by council without proper planning and information. We have been talking about a tourism strategy for some time, but we don't have a strategy. 50% of the tax must be spent on tourism marketing. What conflicted organization is accountable for this spending? What do they spend it on? What type of tourist do we want to attract? The other 50% goes to the town to offset costs to service tourists. We are unsure as to what costs qualify. Do we have to start allocating staff time, such as engineering? What is the basis for such allocations? We haven't established a structure for collecting and reporting the tax. It shouldn't be prohibitive, but we don't know how much it will cost. In point form, my issues are timing was poor, as most of the accommodation sector affected by that were still in COVID protocol. We didn't and don't have a tourism strategy, which must be determined by the industry and our residents. And there are no rules or guidelines, I put expectations, on how the 50% is to be spent on promoting tourism. All businesses in Niagara-on-the-Lake affected by that are private companies and have rights to individual sales data. The common response that I receive is, well, others do it, so we should spend some time and great, how do they do it, so that we can do it the best of any of them. The town has no experience in the tourism business, the town itself, and they shouldn't be in that business. We should get people from the industry in conjunction with the residents that are affected by tourism. The MAT revenues will be massive and well needed. However, simple plans and a little expense should make this a benefit to all our residents and taxpayers. It is October. We've had this program since July 1st. How much have we earned so far? And have there been any payments made by the hotels involved? They,
1 minute.
I don't have to give one more seat.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I had the privilege of working on the short-term rental committee. It was a magical thing that met every week for 4 months, 2 hours a week. It had individuals that were in the business, those that hated short-term rentals, and 2 councilors that were unbiased, of course. So, having said that, how that team came together was such an experience. And under the leadership of Rob Browning, who was our chair, we produced 33 recommendations and filed it with the town July of 2021. We still, and still hasn't been done. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Bob, for having such a quiet little good time, although it's necessary. We've received over 50 questions from residents, and so thank you all that submitted those questions. There will be no questions from the floor, and we will not announce the name of the person who submitted the questions that will be asked tonight. But in a gesture of kindness and ease, I'm going to ask you of the easiest question that was submitted. And if any of you want it repeated as you prepare to answer it, I will be glad to do so. Maria will go first. The second aspect of answering this question, I think we are going to give you the opportunity to do a synopsis of many of the points that you made as you introduce yourself. Because this easy question is this: what do you consider to be the top 3 issues to be dealt with by town council in the next 4 years, and why do you believe they are important? Top 3 issues, next 4 years, and why do you believe they are important? Maria.
Do I have to stand?
It's your choice if you wish to sit.
The cameraman's telling me to sit.
Okay. Listen, I would take instruction.
So calling the question was top 3 priorities for the next 4 years.
Top 3 issues.
Issues. Okay. So
It
for
could be your priorities or someone else's, but
Right.
issues.
Okay, so from what I've been hearing, knocking on doors, taking coffee dates, and just seeing people out on Queen Street, the main concerns that, as Gary said, that we have today are the same concerns we had decades ago. The tourism-related issues such as parking, the fact that we still, to this day, don't have public transportation. I mean, we do have the on-demand, which is a great service, but it too needs a lot of tweaking. The master transportation plan as it was presented, for me, does not work. We need to take it back to the table, sit down and look at it as it involves the parking situation. Where, not just where are visitors gonna park, but where are the staff that work in the Heritage District area going to park? There are over 1,700 employees just on that street. They all drive in from work. Some of them walk, but most of them drive in from work and end up taking up the parking spots before 12 o'clock when the lunch crowd starts to come in. These issues are affecting the residents that live on those side streets. The driveways being blocked. We've heard of people loitering and littering late at night after the bars close. So that's the top two for me: tourism strategy, the master transportation plan, and third is 1 minute already. Third is development. It's a hot topic lately. I feel we do need to move forward with development. We've got the entire Glendale area that needs to be built. The funds that would come in from development charges and residential taxes alone will keep the town growing and moving in the right direction. And I also feel that, as Gary mentioned earlier, we do need to set out the OP, the zoning bylaws, policies and procedures that the developers can follow and stay within and keep on track of what it is that we want as residents and what it is we want as business owners as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Richard, same question.
Okay, thank you for the question. So, if I'd have known this question was coming up, I'd have spent more time talking about myself, I think, in my initial introduction. But so going back to my three issues that I outlined kind of when I introduced myself, planning and development. We all know that that is the buzzword, the hot topic in Niagara. It's certainly something that I think that the fundamentals need to be addressed within the planning department itself. Like I say, increasing the budget for that particular department. When you look at how our municipal taxes are divided among different departments, I think there is scope for a bigger allocation to go to the planning department, not to increase our taxes, but to reallocate. I think we need to go back to a zero budget and see where we start from in the beginning. Staff retention, attracting really talented planners to our, and I'm not detracting from anybody that works for the planning department at the moment, but I think that is something that we need to expand. COVID-19 saw planning applications decrease significantly, and we've seen a steep rise in those in the past even 6 to 9 months since things have really reopened. So it's something that we need to address quickly, otherwise things are going to get beyond our control. Tourism strategy, I know all of my colleagues here tonight have spoken about that. Again, it's another hot topic in town. That balance between the residents and our tourism sector is key. Tourism's a pillar of Niagara on the Lake. It has been for as long as I've been here. I moved here in 2010 to help grow our Great Escape Wine Tour business. We've seen so many wineries open since I moved here. We're not going to stop tourism, so we need to figure out how it can work, in collaboration with our community and make sure that it benefits all of us, which I think it already does, but finding that balance between the two. And again, going back to licensing and permitting, there's so much red tape when it comes to even small entrepreneurs that want to open a business in town. Getting a sign permit in the Heritage District can be a real tedious process. There's so many. I thought you had a question then. Yeah, it can be a real tedious process. So I think some simple things that could, in all seriousness, be done quickly and effectively. Let's just get them done. Let's help our residents move forward with what they want to do within reasonable bounds. I'm not saying let's give everybody kind of free rein, but I think we can certainly create a lot of efficiencies within the town and the procedures that go on.
Gary is next, and your 3 minutes. Now.
Thank you very much. And I would start with a tourism strategy, which I think is critical for our town. We make a lot of decisions and we're not even sure what that strategy is all about. It has to be done in the next 6 months and can be done in that length of time. From there, we can move on to much better things, including getting a good MAT tax recovery. The second thing is getting a handle on development, and getting a handle on it means getting our zoning bylaw in place. I've been told in my early days, a developer came to town and he said that he and all his staff knew far more about our bylaws than any of our staff or any of council knew. That's not right, and the problem is they are doing that. So let's get the rules clear, let's get zoning clear, and try and really develop that so that we don't have monster houses that aren't appropriate on a street. If there's a street full of monster houses, maybe that works, but not on a street full of bungalows. So it happens now, and they know how to get around it. So that's number 2. Thirdly, in my walking around door to door, I'm seeing in every community I'm going to that they believe that their community isn't represented by the town. All the old other groups get the best of town council. That's a problem, and I believe that we need a common enemy. And I was chair of the Niagara region, but right now, the region is not a bad common enemy. They're the ones in St. David's that are determining the roundabout. They're the ones that have Upper Canada Lodge. What is the future? I would like to see see a roundabout at Airport Road and 55, but the key is we have to determine what our needs and wants are in our community, not some other group from outside. And I love the region, but we need to have a good say in what's going to happen in our town. Thank you.
Same question.
Okay, thank you. So, the top three issues, I guess, similar to the other candidates. Tourism strategy, we recognize that if we don't get moving on that, that it becomes problematic as we try to address the revenue from the municipal accommodation tax. Along with that, and I'll speak to it a little bit if I have enough time here, comes strategies to address these issues, right? So one being tourism strategy, another consideration I think from an issues, and although it's been maybe suppressed a little bit due to some of the measures that have been put in place regarding short-term rentals, I think that is still something that looms. And we need to, as Councilor Burroughs mentioned, review and action the 33 recommendations from the STR committee. We need to ensure that the STR program is funded adequately from the licensing costs associated with the STR, so that the balance of the community is not funding the associated costs of managing the short-term rental program. And then obviously we need to give consideration to the appropriate number of STRs in the community from a density perspective. And then lastly, as far as the three issues go, obviously planning as well. We've talked about the zoning that required for the updated OP and corresponding zoning bylaw, and incorporating contextual zoning in that. So those, I guess, are three issues. Now I want to briefly try and talk about three strategies. And it's improving relationship with council and staff. We can have all of the ideas in the world, but if we don't have staff to implement them, we're not going to be effective. So we need to address that. We need to be proactive and anticipatory. So the tourism strategy is a great example. If we don't get going on this, what happens is we end up with strained relationships between the industry, between residents, and that is highlighted in other issues that we've faced, similar to things like STRs. And then lastly, effective and timely communication from the town to the residents and to the stakeholders. A lot of misinformation is spread because of lack of good quality communication that ultimately impedes the progress of the larger issues. So if we can address effective and timely communication within some of these various issues, I think those are kind of overarching strategies to address them. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard, can take Mike for the next question. Question is, on an annual basis, municipal grants have been provided to many organizations in Niagara-on-the-Lake, including the Chamber of Commerce, the Shaw Guild, and others. To you, do you believe that this practice should be continued, modified, or eliminated? And please provide the reasons for your answer.
Can I just get the first line of that again?
On an annual basis, municipal grants have been provided to many organizations, including the Chamber of Commerce, the Shaw Guild, and others. Do you believe that this practice should be continued, modified, or eliminated? And please provide the reasons for your answers.
Okay, this is not my area of expertise, but I'm going to speak to it as best I can. So in terms of municipal grants and with those organisations that you highlighted, I certainly think they're key to the overarching community of Niagara-on-the-Lake. The Chamber of Commerce, the Shore, they're all institutions that have really kind of assisted put Niagara-on-the-Lake on the map. I understand the concerns when it comes to municipal grants and discretionary funds. It is it's a tricky kind of fine line to walk. I do think that there's certainly an area where we can assess them and go back to the basics and see if they are where they should be, or if there's services that can be introduced that can either supplement or replace some parts of those discretionary funds. The municipal accommodation tax, and the two organisations that you mentioned, both being tourism related, I think that's where municipal accommodation tax does come in. Should it completely replace those grants? No, I don't think so. I think our municipality has an obligation to provide organisations that support the whole industry. We're all living in such an affluent area because of the number of visitors that want to come here and see our town. So I don't think we should replace them completely. But could that be in place to supplement those? Then I certainly think that is a conversation that we could have.
Thank you. Together we will be the next responder to that question.
Thank you very much. And in fact, the town stopped doing discretionary grants in this last term of council. And what that did, also the region decided that they would invest in their upcoming budget in brownfields rather than discretionary grants for cultural organizations. In our case, we don't have brownfields. And we have lots of volunteer organizations that do. This is not huge money that these groups are getting. It's $2,000, $3,000, and $4,000, and they're worth it. They are part of the fabric of our town. I bet half of the people in this room are actually volunteering at some organization. And what we had in the past was a matching grant so that the region would kick in half and the town would kick in half. And groups like Music Night, there's 100 service clubs and other groups that need that money, that really are the fabric and the soul of our community. And as I just said, half of us work in some of those organizations. So I'm all in favor of having another strong look at supporting our culture, supporting these small organizations that need our help, need the town's help, and should be part of the future of our town. Thank you.
Nate will be the
Thank you. So, just further to what Councilor Burroughs' comments about the importance of these groups that receive the grant, the municipal grant. There are many that are small groups that contribute greatly to kind of the broader community integration, and that is important. That being said, I think there is an opportunity for reviewing municipal grants. There's an opportunity to look at thresholds and approval processes based on thresholds, and in turn justification. We need to ensure that the municipal grants are contributing on broadly across the community, where there is the benefit is received from a wider range of community members. The incorporation of the MAD may better position us to reallocate funds depending on where some of those grants were, as the original questions mentions the Chamber and the Shaw Guild. But they should be applied for on their individual merits, and I think until we can get a process in place where we can review them adequately, we should continue that pause in discretionary grants until we have a proper process as to how we're allocating those funds. Thank you.
Yes, Maria.
Thank you. So I might be a bit controversial here. From my understanding, the region cut all heritage and cultural grants. The municipality continued with the discretionary funds. So there was no regional level to match any funds given out at town level. There are many not-for-profits and charities in Niagara-on-the-Lake that are deserving of our support. As Councilor Ruller said, some of them
Canada.
Did I say Councilor? What was that slip again? Congratulations. Candidate Ruller.
We may have to give her 20 seconds.
Sorry.
We need the levity.
Let me talk, Colin. So, as Ruller said, we do need to look broadly across those that do apply. And Gary mentioned that there's, the discretionary funding is either 100% or zero. Maybe restructure that format. I do believe there are, the walk-in clinics, the hub for the immigrant workers. They're part of our community. They're residents in this community. I don't agree with giving the discretionary funds as they have in past to festivals and events to promote and bring tourism to town. The discretionary funds that come out of the residents' taxes should go towards residential associations, in my opinion. All others will now be able to pull from the chamber the MAT tax that the DMO will have. They'll be able to work with the chamber in promoting their festival or events through the summer. That's my opinion, and I pass it over to
Okay, the question now will go to Gary to answer first. And the question is, despite ongoing efforts to improve community engagement, further effort is needed based on community feedback. Name 2 things that you would do to address this concern.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, and there's at least 2, but I'll start with 2. The surveys that are put out by the town on their website are not professional surveys. The 2 that I referred to didn't even ask if anybody wanted to respond. They just assumed that we're going ahead with the project. Would you like, in this one case, the wall taller, longer, wider, shorter? Not do you want a wall? That's the first question. So that's one thing. The other thing is, when we're trying to get community engagement, not everybody's on the computer. Not everybody's savvy enough. We need that ability to talk to our residents and let them talk to us. And without the test of, have you checked in, have you done this, did you join this group? No, we need, if we're truly into communication with our residents, we need to assume that there's all parts of our town that need to be considered. And I look over at newspapers, there's another thing that we're not doing that now as a town, and we should. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Nick will answer your question.
Thank you. So, similar, I guess the reality is that we need to look at the various mechanisms that we're using to try and engage the community. If we are struggling with community engagement, we need to look at, as Councilor Burroughs mentioned about not everybody, the online surveys don't work for everybody. The structure of the surveys specifically don't lend themselves necessarily to extracting the information that is useful. They tend to be somewhat guided from time to time, where it's a little bit like bowling and the bumpers are up and the questions allow you to, no matter what, we're going to hit the pins. Right. So I think there's definitely some consideration there. The other side of it from a community engagement perspective is really about timely general communication with the public. And we've heard concerns from residents about road closures because of the Peace Festival or other similar types of situations. And those frustrations are completely avoidable, and it's quite simply because they're not aware of things that are going on in the community. So we need to do a better job of ensuring that the information is pushed out through various mechanisms. And because that lack of communication is leading to other issues. And whether we talk about, I was having a discussion today with a couple of individuals in the tourism industry, specifically with wineries, and we're talking about noise, and we're talking about fireworks. A lot of these things can be mitigated quite easily with better communication with the public. I know I've said before on a personal level, I have 4 young children at home. If I know that the fireworks are going to be going off, I'll take my children and we'll go watch the fireworks. Or I put them to bed, and at 9:30 the fireworks go off and they're all getting out of bed and wandering down, and it's frustrating. A little bit of communication goes a long way, and I think that's part of it. Is let's make sure we're pushing information out timely and broadly across various means and mechanisms.
Thank you. I have, who was next on this one? Joe? Maria? Maria? Yeah, that's right. Okay, question, no problem. Despite ongoing efforts to improve community engagement, further effort is needed based on community feedback. Name 2 things that you would do to address this concern.
Okay. So the first thing I believe is the actual join the conversation piece on the town website needs to be a little more interactive and updated, per se. Join the conversation tends to, if you've ever clicked on it, you have to give your email and your name, and then there's specific questions that you answer. There's not an open sort of chat or somewhere where you can just throw in a quick question. So before joining the conversation, we need to, as council, open the conversation. The second thing is, as Nick Ruller said, there's no communication when it comes to road closures or events happening. Back in the day, and I'm gonna say back in the day, where that wall is, being built, we used to have a huge sign and it had the month's events listed. So everybody knew that on, August the 13th was gonna be Peach Festival, road closure. Everyone knew, when the Santa Claus parade was gonna happen, the candlelight stroll. And it was nice to have, because as a community, we could refer to it, but so did the visitors. So those that were coming down could see, oh, in 3 weeks they're doing this, why don't we come back and do that? And I'd love to see that again. Not everybody is on Facebook, not everyone is reading the local papers, although many do. We have 15,000 residents, and we need to get the word out to the 15,000 residents. So those are my 2 suggestions.
Okay. Thank you very much. New question. And
Yes.
well, you haven't had a chance.
I've got a good answer for this.
I was reading some mine too. Well, let's not waste the time.
No.
Let's go.
Okay, so being on one of the council committees for the past 4 years, I've got first-hand experience of how challenging it was to get the community engagement that we were desperately seeking. We did put out a survey back in January of 2020, I want to say, on the Join the Conversation page, and we got 173 responses. Now, out of 15,000 plus residents, that was minimal, and the engagement came when we published the results of the survey. So there was lots of engagement to be had, but it was only after the fact. So opening those lines of communication, we've got 3 amazing newspapers in town. Please write nice things about me. I think we can utilise these, like Maria said. Not everybody is online, on going to the town's website. etc. Why can we not have a town article in the newspaper every week that has every event, every road closure, every fireworks session planned at a winery? I don't know. Just a little bit, one thing that you can cut out and put on your refrigerator with a fancy little magnet or something. So easy, so simple, and I'm sure we could do that quite easily. I think the second thing is maybe helping people and our residents understand the realm and the scope of municipal politics. This is somewhat new to me, and obviously this is my first attempt at running for council, and really being on the council committee for the past 4 years, getting to learn how much of a slow moving train this is. It's not as simple as somebody wants something done, and so you put it to council, they make a decision, and it goes. Maybe helping our residents really understand what the process is, and that there is there's legislation that things have to go through certain processes. If we widen that scope of everybody's understanding of where we're at and what we can actually do, we've got the regional level, we've got the provincial level, we've got the federal level. We're just a small kind of drop in the ocean, and there's a lot of things that really restrict what we can and can't do. So I think opening everybody's understanding of all of those elements, but like I say, making use of I hear everybody complain, we've got too many newspapers in town, but let's make use of everything when it comes there, and we can really, have everybody understand what's going on in the town.
Thank you. This is the last question from a resident, and they will go unnamed as we committed. Well, boy, is that a long preamble. But I'll get to the question. On August 10th, 2020, the current council rejected a proposed new residential noise bylaw that would limit noise levels to approximately 50 to 55 decibels when measured at the property line of adjoining properties. Residents would have benefited from the passing of such a bylaw. Unfortunately, several local businesses and wineries claimed their businesses would suffer if the proposed bylaw was passed. This small group of business-minded objectors orchestrated their own social media blitz and succeeded in convincing council to reject the proposed residential noise bylaw solely to benefit their own interests. It is now time for the new council to consider the residents of Niagara-on-the-Lake. That was the question. We had no influence. But the question is, if elected, will you support the passing of a new residential noise bylaw that would protect the majority of the town's residents? If elected, will you support the passing of a new residential noise bylaw that would protect the majority of the town's residents? And Gary, I think you have the mic.
Gary?
What a voice. Oh, no.
Is it not that?
No, Gary goes, I think Gary goes first. Would you?
Yeah, Gary's first.
I'm the one that did it.
Rotation.
Thank you for the question, and certainly noise in our community is very serious. What happened, I'm told, August 2020, is not solving the problem, but the problem is much deeper than simply noise. As you know, many of the locations have become event spaces, and one person with a winery told me that we won't do anything about noise at wineries until two next door to each other, one is having a sedate wedding and the next is having a rock concert. Then they will demand some dealing with the noise factor. We don't have enforcement. So I've seen, and this is not a new issue, and when it wasn't passed, it wasn't dropped. Right now, there's a lot of work going on, partly through the Environmental Committee, about noise. And we all carry on our cell phones a noise monitor, so we can tell what the noise level is. but currently, enforcement people will not go out at night without a police escort, and police will not go out for a noise complaint. So we're in a bind, but I can assure the questioner that noise will be dealt with within the next year, because it has to be. It affects all of us, and it's not a residential noise bylaw, it's a noise bylaw. It happens in our rural areas, it happens throughout our town, and we love a lot of the events, and I bet everyone here goes to them, but we have to set limits. If you read the bylaw, there's no amplified music allowed. Well, I think there's amplified music going on as far as I can hear. So I don't want to treat it lightly because it's extremely serious. It's the quality of life for everybody in this room. We need a noise bylaw, and we need to start to deal with the issues that relate to it. So I believe within the next year, the new council will do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Nate will answer the question.
Thank you. So, I guess with this lengthy preamble, it allowed me to write a bunch of things down here. I guess the challenge I have is the creation of a new bylaw doesn't actually solve anything unless we address enforcement, as Councilor Burroughs mentioned. So we do recognize that we need to address enforcement. Another element is we need to be proactive and not reactive. And when we talk about other issues that tie to this, it is about development, and it's about when we look to put a residential development abutting a hotel or winery facility that's having special events. There are clear implications, and if we don't get it right the first time, the reality is we own it as a municipality. So long after that development is sold out and people have moved in, they're not calling the developer to complain, they're calling the town. And then it's all of us that are paying because we have to staff a bylaw enforcement division to get them out to address issues that really could have been dealt with on the front end when we looked at it from a planning perspective. So yes, there's opportunities. Right off the, if part of the question is 50 to 55 decibels at the property line, I'm not in a position to comment that level of detail at this point. The statement does say that residents would have benefited, but again, I think that is a perspective of the individual that wrote the question, and that is something that as council we would need to determine whether it would truly benefit residents as a whole. Not addressing noise and not addressing enforcement is polarizing to distinct groups of residents and business owners, and we need to address that. Lastly, communication. The reality is, when you have an issue at your property, the town needs to reach out to you, needs to advise that there is an issue so that you as a business owner can make adjustments. The businesses are not inherently oppositional and looking to be combative. They need to know there's an issue and they will respond. They are very receptive, they're part of the community. And I think we need to stop that kind of polarizing, and we've heard the term several times about kind of demonizing certain groups. The reality is they are open to working with the community, but we need to communicate what the expectations are.
So I actually was asked to work with a noise bylaw committee that was put together, requested by council, and Councilor Irwin Leeds and Councilor Claire Cameron were there. We sat with a few residents, business owners, and the decibels came up. And had council passed on August 10th, the 50 to 55 decibels, just to give you an idea, this conversation I'm having with you right now is 60. A sneeze is 90. So they would have passed the bylaw. What would that have done to the Niagara Nursery School with the children outside playing? What would it have done to, I don't know, I mean, never mind the wineries. What about the bike tours, you know, where they're going through your neighborhood, oh, it's too loud? It would have opened a huge can of worms. It wasn't ready. The noise bylaw needs to be looked at, starting from how it will be enforced and work backwards. So I support that the council didn't pass that. Now, it was 2020, COVID hit, but it is very, very important that we revisit this almost immediately with the new council, as I'm sure it'll fall in with the tourism strategy as well. Right? So those are my thoughts.
You will not be forgotten on this one. Did you have answer this one yet?
Yeah, I'm last again.
How did that work?
So whenever I think of noise bylaw, the first thing that comes to mind is pickleball. I don't know why. But as Maria said, just a quick Google search there, like the CDC defines a normal conversation as 60 decibels. So if I can't have a normal conversation at my own home, there's a problem. So simple decision as to why that bylaw was rejected at that time. If we're looking at a blanket bylaw that's just going to restrict certain things that we don't quite like every now and again in town, I don't think that's the right approach. If we're looking to restrict, you know, amplified music at certain times of the year, at specific locations, then that's a different conversation. Let's not look at a whole bylaw that covers the whole town just to address certain issues that we can quite reasonably come to an understanding with the stakeholders. And try, you know, when you buy a house close to, I'm going to say Jackson Triggs, you know that there's an amphitheatre there, you know there's going to be concerts in the summer series. It's not a new thing that's been going on, you know, as many years that I can imagine. Just this year, I told a story at the last debate that I was sat at my friend's house, so I sat over there, and it was the very first Sam Roberts concert this season, and I heard the music. I thought, boy, that's loud. It sounded good. You know, 2 years of no music, no fun, no laughter in Niagara-on-the-Lake due to COVID, and we're all complaining there's a little bit of loud music on a Saturday night. I think we've got bigger problems, bigger fish to fry when it comes to Niagara-on-the-Lake. A blanket noise bylaw in town that's just going to try and you know, attack these certain event venues. I have I'm not trying to take away the fact that certain regulation needs to be in place for those events. That's, you know, that's just by the by. We need to protect our residents first, but we need to do it in a constructive and understanding way, and make sure that we're not, you know, making Niagara-on-the-Lake into a place where you can't have no fun ever, basically. So, is that? Are we done for the night? Okay.
No, we're not done for the night.
All right.
Let's come to my question.
Thank you.
However, there is mercy. There's only one more question. We have lots of time for it, simply because in your introductions, not all of you went for the 10 minutes. So this question comes from the media. As I indicated, residential questions, and then the media were invited. So this is from one of our local media outlets. And the question is, I'm going to read out. This council and past councils have allowed a dangerous precedent to be set for commercial operations within residentially zoned homes. They're called short-term rentals and function exactly as small boutique hotels, only without any supervision, without paying commercial property taxes, and without collecting the accommodation tax that legitimate accommodation businesses must collect. Do you believe people should be allowed to operate commercial businesses out of their homes without ever having to live there? And can you please explain the point of even having commercial and residential zonings given the circumstance? So that's the question. Nick will go first, and if you want me to repeat just the question, I can do that.
Just the last piece.
Do you believe people should be allowed to operate commercial businesses out of their homes without ever having to live there? And can you please explain the point of having commercial and residential zoning given the circumstances?
Okay, thank you. So, just taking a step back, the short-term rental operations, it is, I'm intimately familiar with it due to my previous role with the town as part of the licensing process and the implications for specifically for fire. The one thing that I find concerning about when we start to run commercial operations out of residential homes like short-term rentals is, I look around and I look at what our community actually is, right? So I've got young children in minor sports, and the coaches of the minor sports teams are residents, right? They're other parents, right? It's no secret, obviously, that that I'm actively involved as a volunteer firefighter. Those volunteer firefighters live in the houses in my community. So when you start taking houses and using them as accommodations, and they no longer become residential occupancies in the traditional sense, what we end up doing is we all of a sudden we don't have those people. So we don't have as many people that are contributing to the very fabric of the community. So without that, who is coaching minor sports? Who is volunteering in the community for the various service groups? That burden is carried by the rest of us. And I guess that's one of my biggest frustrations. So I have major concerns with how we have, I genuinely believe that we need to take strong action towards managing short-term rentals effectively. I think the committee did a great job. The 33 recommendations, there's a lot of great recommendations in there. We need to look at actioning them. It can't be, these short-term rentals can't be operating on the backs of the rest of us. And I genuinely feel that is the case where they're not owner-occupied short-term rentals. I think that is problematic, and I'm not supportive of it. And I agree, there is a conflict there between that concept of zoning and why we have zoning if we're going to allow a commercial operation to run exclusively out of a residential occupancy. Thank you.
So the question's basically asking if we would support charging commercial taxes for, I would assume, Airbnbs. I know when you own an Airbnb and you apply for insurance, the insurance company doesn't give you residential insurance. It's business insurance. It's commercial business insurance in order to insure the home. The issue is if we change the zoning from residential to commercial on that unit, you now have commercial property zoned within a neighborhood. How do you take that back after? So you're gonna end up with pockets of commercially zoned properties within the neighborhoods. I believe that if the MAT tax is introduced, and it was introduced to accommodations, short-term rentals fall under the accommodations and should also pay into the MAT tax eventually. I know that we aren't, gonna lose out on, it's 3%, so $3 to $6 an evening from an Airbnb rental at the moment because they are coming out of COVID. The zoning needs to remain residential, therefore I think that we need to increase licensing fees and put a cap at how many licenses are given out for the short-term rentals or Airbnbs. And I had a conversation with Richard and Nick that when there's absentee owners, they're calling the fire department because you can't call bylaw. Good luck finding bylaw at that time. So the fire department's receiving these calls to head out, and those firefighters are paid for by our residents. So they're, we need to ensure that the licensing fees get covered by the resident property owner to ensure that we can increase bylaw, that, fire is being covered and not by the residents. I think that's all I have to say for that.
Okay, let's hear some from Richard.
Thank you. So, this was a question that I had at the last meet and greet as well. So, short-term rentals, I'm super familiar with. Like I say, I've lived in Notl for the past 12 years. Cottage rentals and bed and breakfast, it's not something new to the region. My father and Diane, they had a bed and breakfast for 10 years on the outskirts of Old Town on Harmony Drive. The Bed and Breakfast Association, it had many members, both bed and breakfast and cottage rentals. The term short-term rentals and the problems associated with them seem to be tied in with the boom of the Airbnb website specifically, and the increase in people knowing that they could buy a property and kind of rent it out as a short-term rental with very little oversight, no allegiance to an association within town. So when that happened, I think that's when these big problems of short-term rentals seem to come to fruition in Niagara-on-the-Lake. I am in support of short-term rentals to be allowed in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Not everybody wants to come and stay in a hosted bed and breakfast or at the Prince of Wales or the Pillar and Post. Some families want to come and visit our town too. They might have small kids, they might want a kitchen where they can cook their breakfast for them and such. I don't think we want to make this such an exclusive community that we only allow people that want to stay in a high-end hotel, which we have so many of, and they're all amazing. But I do think there's certainly scope for these recommendations that our past term of council laid out, that we can really implement the regulation that we already have in place. Ensure enforcement. I don't know why our bylaw enforcement shift patterns all finish at a certain time, maybe 5-6 o'clock at night. I think there's certainly scope to have maybe some people do an afternoon shift or an evening shift every now and again, and that would certainly help with the enforcement of the issues that come along with short-term rentals. I think predominantly they seem to be grounds maintenance in terms of landscape and grass cutting and such, and noise. And so I think having our bylaw officers work later into the evening for certain shifts could certainly help address that. But I am in favour of a limited number of short-term rentals. I think some of my colleagues have mentioned maybe a total limit on the number of licenses issued per season, and maybe a limit on density per, whether it be by distance or per street and such. So we're not, as we think, hollowing out the neighbourhood as such when it comes to our residents. Something that I truly believe in is finding balance across so many of these issues that we find. You don't have to be, pro or anti. You can be somewhere in the middle, I think.
Gary.
Thank you very much. This is the last question of the evening, is it?
Yes, no, it will be, Gary. A few concluding remarks.
To me, this is an extremely important issue, and as I've mentioned several times, it's almost a bad position to be supportive of short-term rentals. But if you look at this document that was issued over a year ago that talked about short-term rentals, and they don't call it, it's now, if this ever gets passed, it's going to be called hosted and unhosted. And that makes a lot more sense because the ones that concern us as neighbors are the unhosted. And those can be limited. They're talking grandfathered. The way it'll work is to get rid of those, but to have people that actually live there and actually look after, as we know it as a bed and breakfast, that's going to be called hosted, and they add to our community. They don't detract. There's plenty of people in our town that are gone 6 months of the year, so it's not, I always hear the hollowing out of our town, and that's true. We need to see if there's a way that we can get people that go south for the winter to maybe rent out their place for the winter, find another use for it, because we need that community feel. We've got to the point now, and this has not been passed, that people are renting out swimming pools by the hour. in our town. So people can have parties at a pool. Well, guaranteed that's gonna be a noise issue for the neighbors. It's not gonna be a good solution. So we can't wait too much longer. Get a handle on it and control it to the benefit of all of us as neighbors. This new bylaw will be grandfathered, but you cannot have a pool and have a short-term rental. So those are all coming if we actually get moving on this bylaw. Thank you. Thank you.
Gary, Maria, Richard, Nick, you've given up of your time this evening, and this will pale in comparison to the time you're going to have to give if you get elected. But for us, we're better informed, the purpose has been served to have a better informed electorate coming October the 24th, and obviously for the advanced polls. But for you, everybody here that we thank for coming out tonight, let's show a round of appreciation for the The place is open until 9 o'clock. This is meet and greet. This is your opportunity to really shake the hands and ask the questions directly. And that will be the conclusion of our evening at 9 o'clock. Thank you very much for coming out. Come to the other meet and greets as well. And on your way out, Joe and Mike are going to make sure you empty your pockets and you do these. Okay, thank you. And have a good, safe night.